hello, welcome to Sonic Talk number 426. Back again after a short break, though you did have Deep Forest last week, Eric Mouquet, which I thought was a fantastic chat. Very open and exciting guy to talk to about synthesizers. Want to say thank you to our show sponsors. Of course, we have Isotope. There'll be details of the competition coming up shortly. But we also have UVI, makers of the creative hybrid instrument Falcon. If you want to get in touch with them, find out a bit more about it, use the URL bit.ly/STFalcon to check out the latest creative hybrid instrument from UVI. So, hello everybody and welcome. Today's the day. I want to say hi to our guests and also hi to our fulsome chat room, as we always like to say. Well, I certainly do. It is fulsome today. I guess people just can't get enough of our live stuff, which is great. Oh, look, Rich is holding up, look, a little card of somebody, which I shouldn't show because it might have his personal contact details on it. And I know what you lot are like. No, it hasn't. It's all right. Well, Rich has obviously been in touch with UVI people, and I know we've had them on before, talking about, not had them on before, but we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and the Falcon looks very interesting. But let's get on to our live guests. So I'll start over here because we have Gaz. Gaz froze, but now is he back? Let's see. Gaz is back. There we go, Mr. Gaz Williams, fresh from, looks like a hair growing competition. How are you, Gaz? No, he's not. Gaz, of course, is a professional bass player, music technologist, and studio reorganizer. I know you've just actually sorted out your studio, and it's all become a thing of beauty. How are you enjoying your new studio layout?
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, in the far corner there is an iPad running touchable, so it's kind of. I was keeping two very separate parts. The one part at one end of the room being computer based, and the other part at the other end of the room being all the kind of little MIDI instruments and what.
Oh.
Actually putting a touchable controller in there and having everything running in Ableton Live, but the computer interaction being fairly minimal, and I turn it off most of the time as well. So it's just there, ready to capture stuff.
You're breaking up a little bit there, Gaz. I don't know if you've got
It's a good compromise, because I've been looking at trying to build
Yeah, your video and audio, we did get most of that, but your bandwidth is very low, not like usual. So perhaps I'll come back to you in a sec. You might want to just check your settings a minute, but it's a pleasure to have you. Gaz Williams, of course, a regular reviewer, and we hope to have him looking at the Novation circuit very shortly, which we're quite excited about because there's obviously a bit of a hoo-ha about that. It's quite an interesting, innovative instrument. But let's go elsewhere while Gaz takes a look at his settings. Let's say hello to Marc Tinley. Marc Tinley, creative thinker, musician, amongst other things, and man with a very blue set of echo reducing
cheap Chinese phone.
Cheap Chinese phone. I was trying to put it in a way that sounded a little more enticing, but thank you for joining us, Marc.
Sound diffusion foam.
That's right.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. I would say yes, internationally sourced sound diffusion device.
Fabulous. Yeah, that makes it sound really good, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? That sounds much.
Where's it gone? I got this from China as well. Look at these. Look, they turn into internationally diffused sound diffusion. Whatever that's called.
So what are they for corners or putting
loads of them for corners? Yeah, they were like, I don't know, £16, including postage, for like about a dozen of them, I think.
Right.
I don't have a dozen corners though, so I've got 2 left over.
Oh, well,
and now you're wondering, how has he got 10 corners in that room?
I was just thinking. Well, it depends which way you put them, because you've got each angle of the corner. You've got the.
I've got a shelf as well.
That one and that one. You've got 3 corners in each corner, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, you could do it like that. But I've also got a shelf which is over the top of my speakers, which has a corner in the corner.
There you go.
Obviously,
something I'm sure you can find a space.
Undiffused, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, I'll shut up.
Anyway, thank you for joining us. That sounds like you've got a smoke alarm in the background there, doing a little something going on. But
I'll see if I can sort that out.
I'm going to go to Mr. Richard Hilton, who's fresh from Connecticut, where he mans the controls for Mr. Nile Rodgers in the studio. witnessed many great musical events, no doubt. Also is on the road with Chic, where he plays keyboards as well. How are you, Rich?
I'm good, thank you. Very well.
I'm glad to hear that too. You look a
And
bit,
you?
Yes, I'm good too. We're all good. Obviously,
I look what?
Sorry.
I look what?
You look cold. You look like you've got a lot
I'm
of
actually really warm in this.
Well, that's what I meant. Yes, I suppose that's what I meant.
Comfy.
Excellent.
No, it's beautiful autumn weather we've had, actually. It hasn't been too cold, seasonally speaking. So it's great.
Yeah, no, it's been very warm here as well. But anyway, I want to say thank you very much to everybody. I think before we go any further, I think we can't help but say, obviously our thoughts go out to everybody in Paris and the kind of wider music community because of what just recent world events. I don't want to get into the details of it because it's such a deep and heavy issue, but I just want to say, if anybody out there's been affected by it or in any way, then, we want to say condolences to you and obviously, hopefully this is it. Anyway, that's all. Really, thank you very much for listening to my witterings. But so I think what we'll start with is perhaps the this, which is an interesting concept. Well, I have to say, the sound in this thing is absolutely massive. That's really sounds like it's been through it. So this is a really interesting new box, or not that new, but it's one that's just recently come to mind. We posted a news item about it. It's kind of a do-it-all little feedback, anti-feedback, compression, EQ curve, sub-harmonic sort of sub-driver that you could take out to gigs with you. It's based on the DBX Go Live racks, which are much more complex speaker management systems, and just really like the idea of this notion. I mean, I'm sure that we've seen this kind of technology in a few instances, certainly with like TC Helicon Voice Live where you get sweeteners, but this is designed to kind of interface between you and your speakers and be able to give you a kind of more professional sounding, less feedbacky thing, which I'm guessing, to many people, perhaps, obviously, I guess, Rich, and it's not going to work so much for a Chic gig, but I mean, I'm sure it would be useful. But you're much more tooled up when you go to this sort of thing. But it seems like quite an interesting idea, and it's really, really cheap. I mean, by cheap, I mean inexpensive. $99, 79 quid. Quite a cool idea. I know, Gaz, I mean, I've seen you play sort of a few smaller venues. I mean, obviously it's quite difficult because you get a lot of sound coming off stage as well. So anything like this needs to be able to interact with what the general ambient venue sound is. But it's a neat idea, don't you think?
Yeah, and I mean, the cost of it is unbelievably cheap because there's 2 preamps in there as well.
Yeah.
So you could use just as a PA in itself, just that. 2 mics going into that.
You could. Hold on, I've got some pictures here. There's I think if I hit that, yeah, there's the back. And then there's the top. So you just got individual buttons, and it's kind of very, very simple and straightforward. Anti-feedback, I'm guessing it learns. Press and hold. You get various different parameters for amounts of compression, sub-synth settings. And then I think there are 16 EQ curves, which may or may not suit the venue. It's designed to work with active speakers, I'd imagine, because if you're going to take this along, you've probably not got racks of amps, because if you have racks of amps, you probably have a rack with something like that in it as well. But it's kind of neat. Wrong button.
The fact it's got mic preamps that you could just use that microphone, and plug it into any system. That in itself is pretty powerful, really, because it's got, just like a really microphone, one of those, any room, people talking, giving talks, the feedback control, pretty cool thing.
It does look pretty neat. I mean, it's not something that I find. I think it might be interesting for processing as well, just in terms of maybe getting, because they're pushing it all across the board from solo performers, small bands, DJs, that sort of thing. Where perhaps maybe a small venue where they haven't got all of that protection built into their systems. Kind of cool. I know, Mark, you occasionally do smaller gigs with your guitar and what have you. I mean, there are, I think, is there something like this from other people, or is it this just looks like a little pocket-sized bundle of interesting...
Maybe the Behringer anti-feedback things, but this looks like you could plug it in and it would work. And I noticed that it's got a sub-harmonic synthesizer on it as well.
Yeah.
Which DBX just happened to do like the best and brilliantly. So if it works as that, I'm intrigued by the 31 band graphic EQ and the idea that you can have all these different presets for different music. I wonder if people will stick to those or use them creatively. But how on earth can they do this for like £79 or euros?
Well,
it's just
DSP.
It looks like a very, very useful thing, and it looks like the sort of thing that every sound engineer should have in a drawer, even if for that pull out and fix things purpose. But actually, it looks like a device that every sound engineer should have in between the desk output and the amp, actually. But maybe not in a drawer, but it does look good.
Sorry, Gaz.
Amazing. Put on a pedal board, on a guitarist pedal board.
Oh yeah, that might be interesting. You put some
amazing. Just to have that on your pedal board. It's got line inputs in there.
Yeah, it has. Well, it comes from this family of processors. These are the drive racks. I mean, these look like sort of multi-channel setups. And presumably some of these are going to have delays and stuff, so you'd be using it in larger venues where you might need to delay for clusters and different sides. So they've got a big rack of it, and then it goes right down to this little guy. I know, Rich. I mean, I'm guessing there's a lot of people in the US who do small gigs, and hence and church gigs. I mean, there's probably quite a big market for this kind of thing, wouldn't you imagine?
I would imagine, and it looks like a really useful thing, and I'd love to see it in action.
Yeah, I guess the thing is if you're in a small, like we talked about, if you're in a small venue when your stage sound is going to be a part of the overall thing, whether it introduces any latency, because it's got to be DSP, right? I'd imagine.
Yeah, probably DSP.
Yeah,
I don't know, but probably, and yeah, probably a little bit of latency, but
I don't think it matters.
Do you not?
Actually,
right.
It doesn't matter. Latency doesn't matter on the PA, on just across the PA, because the crowd are 100 feet away. They've already got 15 milliseconds latency. No, more than that. It's about a millisecond a foot, isn't it? So if they're 100 feet away, they've already got 100 milliseconds latency. So if this introduces another 10 or 15 or 20 milliseconds, nobody's going to notice.
No, that's a fair point. But anyway, this was just a useful little thing. I mean, I suppose there's not an awful lot much more to say about it, really, apart from, I mean, I've never got, because I did do a bunch of live sound in my past, and I do remember the first time I had to get involved, and actually when those venues, when you show up with the band, the PA arrives late and they just drop it in the middle of the floor and go, there you go, and there's no tech or anything, and you have to put the whole thing together and remember which direction. It's like, okay, I go mixing desk into crossover into limiters, and the limiters into amp. I think that's it, and just sort of hope for the best, and that you have any kind of inkling. It always used to be the BSS tunable crossovers that we used to get, so you'd mute it, but it was, God, then it would be, did you go crossovers into limiters, or crossovers into graphic, or graphic into crossover? Mark, you might remember this. I can never remember the order it used to go in.
Crossover's last, isn't it?
Crossover would be last. Yeah, that's a very good.
But I'll tell you where this would be useful. Ibiza. Because whenever you do sound in Ibiza, you go like, right, we're going to do a sound check. And they go, yeah. Then about 2:00, everybody just disappears, and you're left standing there going like, okay, what's happening now? And then, siesta. And then about 7:00 in the evening, everyone comes back, and you've been sitting around for 5 hours feeling like a very silly Englishman. And then they go, right, okay, let's do the gig. And you go, what? No, hang on, we haven't done a sound check. So
I've not experienced that.
At which point everything goes, whoo, and ee, and lots of feedback and things going wrong. So one of these would save some of that squealy embarrassment, perhaps.
Rich, I'm guessing by your chuckling, this might be an experience that you have you could share. You've shared at some point.
I couldn't possibly share it any better than that.
In Siesta Country.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, absolutely. I can relate.
Actually, so what happens in that situation? Does that mean you just have to get in even earlier to make sure that you get the sound check in before Siesta kicks off?
What happens in the situation where the crew takes off all day?
Yeah, that one.
I probably still haven't gotten there yet. Because I'd go with the band. I don't go with the crew.
No, of course, yeah.
Those guys probably end up sitting around all day just like Mark described.
And the band never any the wiser. Probably.
No,
they don't get up till late anyway, because they haven't gone to bed till late, and they sleep in the day. So it's just a different culture, really.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Anyway, well, that sounds like a fun thing. Anyway, so the next thing we were going to take a look at is what's the time? Yes, I think we've got time to do this straight away. A new instrument from Mr. Timothy Exile, as his mother probably calls him.
I made Flesh because I wanted to have an instrument that would allow me to perform a whole track in one go.
So as far as I understand it, and I haven't actually been able to study and get the information too much, the idea is that you could load up 12 samples in it. It's a reactor-based, very clever thing that analyzes the rhythmic melodic content of any samples you put in it, and then which affects the way that the modulations and the sound generation of the 12 devices, I think there are 12, operates. Obviously he's demonstrating it with the control keyboard. We won't play it all, but I mean, Tim Exile, I think one of the things that he said in one of the other videos that I saw was that he made it because he doesn't say that, it's in the text on the website actually, where he was saying that, he used to have, or does have, this very complicated multi-controller, multifaceted setup that enables him to, do what he does. And he wanted to kind of make something that was a bit more compact, that allowed him to create and compose using some of the techniques that he's got in his system, and also allows you to record all these individual parts. I think this works with that way, and so it does look kind of cool. It's using the Reactor 6, which obviously, as we know, has quite a lot more capabilities. I know it's interesting, Gaz, isn't it? Because all his instruments seem to be named after parts of the body.
Yeah, but this does look really, really cool, and I think one of the really interesting bits about it is in the fact that each of the modules, each of the different sort of effectors, I'm not sure what you call them, have essentially the same 4 controls. So you can adjust the 4 macros and adjust those equivalent 4 things for each of the engines, but you can kind of set the ranges that each of those controls will affect.
Right.
So it's a very nice interface, meaning that, boiling it down to just those 4 controls, but with enormous amount of effect, I think is it looks, and I haven't tried it yet, but I definitely want this one. It looks like it looks like that the fun element of it and the exploration element of it would generate remarkable amounts of possibilities. And one of the things I really liked about what I read about it recently was that Tim Exile said, the thing he's going to be doing next is learning how to play it himself.
Right.
Because he's created something there that's a pretty vast thing.
Yeah, just looking at the webpage, we've got the sample engine, which changes the sonic character of the sample, the synth, which rebuilds its wavetables based on your sample, and transforms your sample into a monophonic sequence or lead, polysynth engine, which is granular synth that takes your input signal into chords, and subsynth engine, effects engine, and modulation page, which is, I think, I haven't actually switched that. I'll actually switch that on, shall I? Then you'll be able to see the things I was talking about. Of course, if you're watching the
subsynth module cleverly follows either the poly module or the mono module, so
or the incoming pitch, or the source from the. Oh, I see. Yeah. So it looks like there's a lot. I mean, it sounds like there's probably going to require a fairly decent amount of grunt to run that in Reactor. I mean, as Reactor, as we know, I mean, I imagine that Native Instruments have done quite a lot in the latest iteration to kind of make it more DSP efficient and what have you. So it could be kind of cool. Rich, have you tried any of Tim Exile's instruments? I know you're quite an adopter of these Reactor-based ensemble stuff.
Yes, I have. Both mouth and finger. I've tried.
Which order?
There
are so many commentators. What other could he possibly come up with? Mouth, finger. Yes, well, let's not go there. We're a family-friendly show, generally speaking.
As regards this thing, it looks all wonderful, cool, and groovy, and at the same time, it kind of looks like the ultimate arranger keyboard.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Key and a whole bunch of shit happens.
Depending on what you put in it, I suppose.
Yeah, and I'll bet it could be used really creatively, and I'd like to see it used that way. But he was kind of being very random in his generation of things, and he wasn't like adhering to any kind of patterns between the thing. I need to have a sense of how well it can be arranged. And how random
it is hard to tell,
how well you can constrain its randomness, because he seemed pretty random in his performances on it.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's not another one of those kind
I didn't think that.
Did you not? Oh, okay. Well, it was random in terms of the maybe the intervals and the movement. There is an underlying chord sequence, I think, under there somewhere, but it's quite hard to tell. But yes, I know what you mean.
I watched a whole bunch of his videos. I actually spent some time with this thing, at a distance. And I don't think it's for me, but it is cool. And it does a lot of stuff, like real easy. You could press a key and a lot of stuff happens. And then you can press the key next to it and a lot of other stuff happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
See, I watched his videos as well, and I kind of noticed that it all sounded to me, I mean, maybe my ear is not quite attuned enough to know that it's not, but it just sounded to me like it was all on the same note, or all in the same key, or all in the same relative key. So it didn't really seem to move around a lot. I went from video to video thinking, wow, this all sounds really similar. But in the same kind of way, I don't know if anybody's got that iPad app called Orpheon, which is a kind of it's tabla things, and the harder you hit the screen, the more the timbre of the instrument changes, and it's a sort of an FM kind of synthesized drum with a kind of FM-y edge to it, and everything to me sounded a bit FM-y. And then I listened through all the demos, and they all sounded much the same, apart from one. And this was one where he hadn't put a drum loop into it. He'd put some kind of ethereal sounding pad into it, and then all the stuff over the top, all of those kind of FM overtones, like the chord, which I noticed was called polytheism, which I thought was amusing, and the mono thing, which I noticed was called monobrow. So I am a polytheist, I think. And I do have a monobrow, so I guess he's already, marketing to me.
That's
in an appealing way.
Very targeted marketing, I must say. Yeah. I mean, there are some comments coming in the chat room which are kind of saying, great, more music by numbers. Just push a button and shit happens, as you said, Rich, which I think is a fair comment. But I suppose I'd really
But for sound evolving as a sound evolving tool, it sounded like, when he didn't put a drum loop in it and when he put something musical in it, it was evolving all these harmonics and kind of different things. In the same way that I don't know if you remember that you used to be able to put like a whole series of waves into a wave station and then crossfade between them. So you could hold down a pad and it would start off sounding like a string, and then it would sort of like just morph into something else. This sounds like you could create really fabulous, dark, evolving kind of ethereal sound beds for film music.
That sounds like quite an interesting idea.
So
I'm surprised.
I think somebody needs to use it in the same way that he's using it, and then we'll see how good it is.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I'm surprised that we didn't get the now trending kind of ambient noodling type of demonstration for this, because that's one that I would personally respond to. But yeah, that sounds like an interesting idea, guys. Take it away from the rhythm and give it more harmonic content.
I've recently got the binaural microphones that I've been planning on getting for many years, and so there's a little project that I'm going to be involved with soon, which involves going to get found sound, and then manipulate that found sound. So this actually looks perfect for that particular endeavor, and
Can I be in that project, please? That sounds like a whole load of fun to me. I love doing things like that.
Yeah, well, yeah. So it's that I'm really interested in exploring binaural recording more and more. I know Mark is incredibly interested in it too, but a conversation I've had recently with someone who works in the games industry, just talking about the virtual reality binaural experience. There's going to be just such a lot of development.
Oh, yes, that's true, yeah.
I just wonder just how binaural recordings fed through all of this.
Whether it's dealing with whether it has a lot of stereo imaging, I don't know. It's hard to tell from the demo. I'm not sure if they did, but that's a very good point. I mean, as we've seen, there's Oculus Rift. There's Facebook, I think, are getting into it. Or do they own Oculus? I can't remember which way around it is. But there are multiple competing three-dimensional kind of viewers, entertainment kind of technology all sort of vying for position at the moment. It's going to be like the sort of Betamax VHS wars, but with more competitors, I think, quite soon. But it would be nice if there was a way for people who are sound designing for these things to use specific tools. I mean, I know because obviously you've got VWise and Fmod in the gaming market, and maybe those sort of things will be able to work as translators between this and whatever it is the 3D thing happens. I don't know, Rich, because Oculus hasn't really made it over here. Have you seen any of that 3D stuff? Have you been exposed to any of it? Because it's a bit more around there than I think it is here. It hasn't really made it across because it's still in prototype. You're just going to say no, aren't you? Or...
No. I do. I, however, have a friend who's deep in and widely respected, apparently, in the virtual reality VR world, but I don't know anything about any of this. So,
okay. I think
the less I say about it, the better.
But I think this is something that's actually probably going to come up more and more. Is that one of the reasons that you went binaural there, Gaz? Because you just thought, well, this would be a kind of a way that you can enter into that whole world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Although talking to this chap, he's saying that it's the processing. You don't need binaural recordings for the game environments because they need to kind of.
They do it in themselves.
Do it with a kind of a program to be able to move.
QuickTime has it built into it. QuickTime's got some really good binaural tools built into it.
Okay. I haven't seen those yet.
But absolutely, I mean, this is, whether we like it or not, going to be in 5 years' time, it's going to just be the dominant thing. It's going to be enormously, it's going to be a huge thing.
Right.
You're saying you haven't seen them. You probably have. If you've ever clicked on the pan control in Logic and clicked into there's a binaural panner in there with a radial pan thing, and you can switch all of your pans in Logic to binaural pans, and you can choose what kind of output you're feeding them to. So 5.1 or 7.1,
I think that's been
stereo.
That's been since version 5, hasn't it? It's been quite an early.
Yeah, it's been in a long time. So
I remember doing
that, but that's based on the underlying Apple binaural sound engine, which they use for gaming, and it's actually quite good because they use it to create gaming environments for partially sighted people, and if it's good enough to convince them, then I would say that it's probably good enough. Because they can't play the game based on sight. They have to play the game based on their perception of sound and the direction that it's coming from. So they
right.
They use.
Oh, you still there?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were. I
think I muted myself. Sorry.
No,
I told you I was tired.
Your voice. Well, what you've done is it sounds like it's changed your sample rate.
Okay. That's because I just loaded Logic. Sorry. Have I gone back to normal now?
No, you are like a munchkin on helium, which is kind of fun. But that we could live with that for a little while. I'll switch away to cover your. That's brilliant. So yeah, but I think it's $89. You need the Reactor 6 player or obviously Reactor itself. But it does look like it's going to be a lot of fun to work with. That's the Tim Exile thing. Anyway, I think it's time now to introduce obviously our other show sponsor, Ozone, of course. Before we get started, we've got a couple of competitions to announce because obviously we didn't have a live week last week, but there was a competition last week. But first of all, let's just give the people Ozotope a chance to tell you about Ozone 7, which is pretty much the ultimate mastering suite. Isn't it? I don't know why this happens every day. We are.
Produce rich, full, professional-sounding tracks with the critically acclaimed mastering tools in Ozone and Ozone Advanced. Now, the latest isotope innovations in Ozone 7 bring modern and vintage processing to the forefront of the music production experience. Updated for Ozone 7, Ozone's highly regarded maximizer features a brand new frequency-specific IRC4 algorithm that delivers transparent mixes with less pumping and distortion. Use it to smooth out an unwieldy mix, or tame the kick drum peaks without affecting the vocals. The dynamic EQ, now in both the advanced and standard versions of Ozone, lives and breathes with your audio, giving you more effective control over your sound without coloring your entire mix. Harness the precision of an equalizer and the musical ballistics of a compressor in one integrated processor.
I'll stop it there. That's thank you very much to iZotope for sponsoring the show. I would very much appreciate it. And we've got some winners. I'll start 2 weeks ago because then we can come to the nearest bit. And if you stay tuned, you'll be able to enter the chance to win another copy of Ozone 7. So from Sonic Talk number 425, I want to send a shout out to Extra Borg 3, who he's called Matthew, but his Twitter handle is at extraborg3, one word, and he basically tweeted, would be the icing on the cake for my new look studio. In fact, his new look studio is right here. So he did post, he's obviously been working on a studio refit as you have. So I want to say congratulations to Matthew, aka ExtraBorg3. If you get in touch with your email address, the iZotope Fairy will be able to deposit Ozone 7 in your inbox, and you'll be able to indeed enjoy that in your new studio. And also, we had another competition for last week, the week before, where we asked you to tweet Mix Glue and Ozone 7 to at iZotope Inc. and at Sonic State, and the winner is Sam McEwen, and he says he's in desperate need of an ozone layer on my bedroom jams. Help me. Well, we can help you, Sam. So again, if you get in touch, your Twitter handle is at Sam McEwen. So please do, both of you, get in touch, and we'll be able to facilitate your Ozone 7 copy. And of course, this week we have another competition, as is always the way. You can win iZotope Ozone 7. We're looking for the hashtag Mastering Suite this week, which is one word, hashtag Mastering Suite and the hashtag Ozone 7. And if you mention at Sonic State and at iZotope Inc., you'll be entered in the competition, and our fantastically complicated supercomputer winning device will pick you for next week. So please do that. I'll say that once more time. Tweet the hashtag Mastering Suite, one word, and the hashtag Ozone 7 with the number 7 to at Sonic State and at iZotope Inc. And once again, we thank iZotope for their sponsorship of the show. Very much appreciated. Right, the next topic is... this was, top utilities. Now, this was something that... The only reason this came up for me was because when I was doing the... I'm trying to remember what it was now. I was doing a review, and I can't remember what it is I was doing. I think it was the... God, dear, that's terrible. I've completely forgotten. I needed to route two USB devices to each other without running a DAW because I wanted some other things going on. And I found this utility called MIDI Patch Bay. This is an OS X one only, and it's just a really neat idea. What you could basically do is you could just set a MIDI input, which would be a USB device connected to your computer. You can either route it directly to a DAW, or you can route it to another physical USB output, a port, where if you've got multi-ports. And it's just really, you load it up and it does the routing for you, so you can route devices into each other. So I think in my instance, what I wanted to do was route a controller to another piece of equipment, so I could basically control it without having to run the whole thing in one go. And I just thought, well, this got me thinking, because there are a lot of little utilities out there. This one's a free one, and it's by a chap called, I think it's called Not a Hat. So if you search for MIDI Patch Bay Not a Hat and you're looking for something like that, it's very, very handy. So really what I was going to ask, if anybody else had any tips along this line, just sort of little utilities that you find endlessly useful that aren't necessarily, the superstars of the plugin world or whatever. So I could see you're all looking at skyward, wondering what on earth you're going to say at this point. Rich held his finger up, so I'm guessing that means you get to go first.
I don't recall I don't think we discussed it on here, but there's a plugin called Bitter.
Bitter.
As in Bitter, Bitter. That is nothing more than a bit scope, but it was introduced actually on the Pro Tools Expert website to me in a video they were doing about managing dither and bit numbers, and how it was actually very useful. If you had asked me this question 15 years ago, I would have a folder full of clever little things that help me calculate delay times and do all kinds of interesting things. Today, I hardly need them because almost all of that is built into the DAWs, regardless of which one you use.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
There aren't that many, and I was never a guy who was really like waking up in the morning and looking forward to diving into the environment page in Logic. I wasn't that guy anyway. So I used to have like folders full of this kind of stuff for these kinds of little conversions and viewing things and stuff. The only one I've got now is this thing Bitter, which seems very interesting. And
I can tell you it's by Stillwell Audio.
Yeah, that's them.
And here it is. It's download free. It's 32-bit, 64-bit Windows, Apple, VST, AU, RTX, AAX. And it's just what's it do? It shows how many of the available bits are used by the audio signal. Okay, that's a nifty idea.
It's a bit scope, and it really does point up how the digital audio is being managed in terms of word length while you're doing various things. Because you start with a track that's 24-bit track, and you adjust its volume, and all of a sudden the bit scope like billows because it takes a whole bunch of processing and extra bits to calculate what you've just done. It's really quite interesting. And then what else? They did an interesting demonstration on this on the Pro Tools Expert website of what happens when you use 32-bit floating point and why people rave about it so much. And they did a great demonstration of that. It was cool.
Excellent. No, that sounds really useful. Thank you very much. We'll put that in the show notes. The chat room's coming up trumps with lots of it. Obviously, there's MIDI pipe there, which is a great one. There's also what's the one that I use for MIDI monitor. These are all OSX because that's my MIDI monitor is very useful if you just want to see what's coming out of a MIDI device. Just switch it on and it gives you just a stream, and you can do filtering to sort of so you're not getting lots of system real-time messages. So you wiggle it. I use it in reviews because obviously I want to see very quickly whether or not a device is outputting MIDI controller, and I don't want to fire up a DAW and try and map it. I just basically put that on, then I can see what it sends out, and it means that I can monitor. You can monitor and then send the MIDI through to other apps, and that's a really good one, and that's a free one. I don't think it's updated all that often. I mean, it just works. That's a really good one. These are all MIDI utilities for me. I won't say any more in case one of you has got one that you want to fire. Was that one of yours, Gaz?
Yeah, the one I wanted to mention was the Blackmagic disk speed test. A little app you can download for free, and it's really cool because you can test all your external drives and just see which ones. It's just a cool little way of assessing how fast your drives are. And I've started doing more video stuff recently, so so really that's what it's about. It shows you what video it's capable of writing and reading from to the drives, but it's just good. It's just good because I've got so many different drives attached. It's just interesting to see what kind of performance you get from them. But when you test the Mac Pro's drive, there's like two speedometers. It's one for read and one for write.
Here we go. There it is. Right there on the App Store.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It's useful.
Excellent. Well, it's one of those things that you don't come across very often, but often one just assumes that all your drives are going to be super fast because everybody thinks that they are. But sometimes you might have something that's maybe just going down to USB 2 or even USB 1. You might not be getting that much speed out of it, and that could be an issue in in your flow of stuff. Yeah. Thank you very much, Gaz. That's very helpful. And yeah, you could just, although this is on the App Store, I'm pretty sure Blackmagic Speed Test, and we use quite a lot of Blackmagic gear here, and it comes as part of the suite, but you can get it for PC as well. It's not just a Mac thing. Okay, I'm coming to Mark, who looks deep in thought.
That's because I can't remember what any of them are called. On the Mac, hardly anything. But actually, if you've got a Mac, you absolutely have to go and get SoundHack, even though it's like 2,000 years old or whatever. When did he release it? I'm just looking at it now. It's on soundhack.com/freeware. The original release was on October the 26th, 1991. But it allows you to pull sound apart in like really interesting ways. You can like pull the noise out of you can pull the fundamental frequencies out of a sound and all the harmonics, and you can separate the two, and you can do lots of binaural stuff in there. Actually, it's got all the head related transfer filtering, all sorts of different stuff. So just unbelievably useful. And then I was trying to remember because I use a number of different programs on my PC to get sound out of one program and into another program in much the same way as you might do with Jack or Soundflower, but I can't remember what they're called. It's like there's a MIDI one called something like Virtual MIDI Driver,
Right.
and there's an audio one called something like RTP. Oh no, RTP MIDI. Maybe.
RTP MIDI is very useful. That's the one that's the network audio driver, because it's not built into, it's built into OS X, but you just wrote a little utility and it runs on PC, and then you can join all the other computers if you've got OS X computers or other PCs that run RTP MIDI. It's a very low footprint thing, and then it will transmit MIDI around, over Ethernet or Wi-Fi. So I mean, we use it here. I mean, this whole setup is based around RTP MIDI, where I'm pressing a button here and the RTP MIDI. Maybe, the RTP MIDI goes over to a PC over there. It goes to a Mac over here. There's an iPad in the mix sometimes, which transmits and listens. And that's really useful, particularly if you use MIDI a lot for remote switching or triggering key commands, that sort of thing. There's a lot of these nifty. I mean, a lot of.
Do you know what I think it's called? Actually, I think it's called virtual audio cable. Thinking about it, the virtual PC audio to audio thing.
Okay. Virtual
I had to buy it, I remember it, but it wasn't expensive. It was like £27 or something, and then it lets you take MME. It virtualizes a Windows MME driver, and then will let you feed audio from one program back into another program in much the same way Jack does, or Soundflower.
Okay. That's all useful.
In fact,
stuff.
This is it. Yeah, it is called virtual audio cable, and it's. You'll have to Google it because I can't read the
It's by
URL out.
Muzhychenko. Software by
That sounds about right.
I'm putting that in the show notes. Don't worry, folks. I will try and put all of these in it. But yeah, lots of little invaluable things. They're still out there. And as you say, Rich, a lot of this stuff has become something that we take for granted because it's, a lot of metering and a lot of these things are available in the larger DAW packages. But there are some things that aren't. Or maybe you just don't want to load a large DAW package to do something very simple. If you've got something else going on the computer.
I spend a lot of time... Oh, you're talking to Rich?
No, I'll talk to you as well. Rich nodded.
I spend a lot of time trawling around maxforlive.com. That is a really brilliant website with lots of people coming up with all sorts of different innovative things for... I bought a thing the other day which allows me to completely remap the Launchpad Pro and create user music scales. That's another thing. Have you seen the J74 thing? There's a thing by somebody called J74 who does this Max for. It's a Max application that completely remaps the Launchpad Pro and gives you all sorts of different musical scales, and you can just click on the scale that you want, and it gives you a really, really nice layout actually that works really well. But loads of things for creating chords from a single key on maxforlive.com or for pitch shifting audio in really weird ways, and loads of free synths on maxforlive.com.
Oh, we'll check that out. Just really quickly in the chat room, there's Audio Hijack. Yep, that's another one that's been, and something called Oscular, which I don't know what that is. Lets you use game controllers like Nintendo Wii controllers as a MIDI controller. That's very cool. So you can sort of hijack the... I guess it's Bluetooth, isn't it, on those things? There's a lot. Anyway, we will try and put a few of these in the show notes, but I just wanted to get a couple of tips from you guys, so thank you very much for that. All right, let's get on to this guy. This is very interesting. This is a new drum pad system, and this is a really quite a compelling demo.
That's almost more dynamic than
which is that's a fabulous demonstration. This is the new Mandala V3, which is it's on an Indiegogo, and it's quite an ambitious project. It's basically new pads which have a very I've already loaded that page. Let me just go. I'll load the web page here, and you can take a look. It's Indiegogo, so it's a Kickstarter kind of thing, and it's these pads which have a lot of positional sensitivity as well as velocity sensitivity, and they're also introducing a new kind of sample format which allows you to load up lots and lots and lots and lots of samples. I think over 100,000 velocity layers or what have you into a single file, which then allows you to programmatically set this up. Comes with a little box, and there's various different packages you could get. It's a shame that Ty Unwin couldn't be on here because he's basically bought it. He just said it looks absolutely fantastic. And from I don't think the kind of Indiegogo video is all that interesting, but that was the most compelling video I found, which sort of said, well, there you go. That is actually kind of cool. I don't know, Rich. I mean, I know you record a lot of drums. That's one of your things. I mean, and obviously it's a great. I mean, pads are very useful live, obviously, because of the lack of setup and the sound bleed and things like that. Are you finding that there are more people turning up in your world with more and more sensitive type pads, or do you think there is a hole in the market for something that has this level of playability?
I hope so, because it looks like a really cool product, and I know they're hoping so. It's pretty expensive. If you look at what it costs to buy a couple of these things, it's not cheap.
No.
But it looks like a really cool product, and yes, those demos are very, very convincing of that guy with the 3 drums in front of him. One fully electronic, one of these things, and a normal drum. It was really impressive.
Yeah, no, the sensitivity was very impressive, and I think that's the thing that you notice. I know, and to be fair, the V drum didn't come out best in that, but I have heard better demos of the V drums. I don't know which V drum it was, and certainly that they've really improved the way, because it used to be awful cymbal choking, and they've really improved that, and you get these really nice crescendos without too much of that kind of cut off and choke. So those things have improved a lot. So it's hard to know exactly what that was up against, but there is, you can tell, and that did sound very sensitive indeed. I don't know whether Gaz, is it because you work with real drummers all the time? I mean, but I've seen you work with guys that are working with pads and stuff. I mean, this could be quite revolutionary, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's. I think that demonstration that you did show. I mean, I think I've definitely used V drums that sound much, much better, that don't do that. You can get around that thing that it was doing by just adjusting the settings. So that did seem a little bit unfair towards the V drums, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree, but it still sounded better than V drums I've heard in the past anyway. But
no, absolutely, and the thing itself, it does. Yeah, I mean, it's terrific, and I think that file format sounds really interesting too, because just in general is just single files that are multi-samples. It's just really an interesting idea anyway. And I wonder if MPE, whether this system could benefit from MPE just for more.
That's multi-dimensional polyphonic expression, for those who are unaware of that acronym. Just like to add.
MPE. I've decided to be a full-on supporter of MPE. So I wonder just to allow for just that much more, macro electronica, human expression.
Yeah, I know. I think it may well be. I mean, you can put up to 7 controllers into the box, I think, that when you get it, and I imagine they probably assume you'll buy a pad and a box, or a couple of pads and a box, and then go, crikey, I just need more because it'll be so convincing. I mean, that would be probably the ideal marketing strategy, assuming this can come up with the goods. And also it does require a plug-in or a standalone sort of software interpreter to deal with that. So then it's not just the box and the pads you get. I don't know, Mark, do you have any strong feelings about this? It did sound quite impressive though, don't you think? I know you didn't find the video that you watched particularly exciting.
I fell asleep watching the video. I am tired though. That's what happens when you go to bed at 3:30 in the morning. I don't realise I'm 52. I haven't worked that one out yet, and then I have to get up at 7:30 to get my kid ready for school. So 4 hours sleep isn't enough for an old man like me. So I did fall asleep watching the video, but I kept looking at it and thinking, why don't you just do that with a drum? So that's not overly cynical. It just seems like, well, if you're going to do something that's got 100,000 samples on a pad and you can get all these different nuances, why make it sound like a drum? Why not make it sound like 100,000 things? You could put 100,000 different bee samples in there, and then you could make it sound like a swarm of bees.
It's a subject very close to your heart. Or Foley. Foley perhaps would be a good one.
Yeah, or something, just something. It's like, do you know, I spent the last week or so wondering about this. Like, we just keep making. I watched your reviews of the JP-06 and the other one, and I'm really sad you didn't do the third one, because the third one's the one I want to buy, and I wanted to see what you thought of it.
I didn't get time, but I do apologise for that, but it just ran out of time.
But I also, it's like, why do we keep making these things that are like replicas of things that we invented in the 1940s and the 1950s? What's that all about? Why do we want to emulate a synthesizer? Like the Jupiter 8 was like end of the 80s. That was the pinnacle of a style of engineering that kind of Bob Moog invented, perhaps, or, you know, some bloke with a valve somewhere went, oh, if we short this out, it makes an audio signal. Like somebody's invented that. They're trying to emulate a physical instrument with an electronic thing. And we just keep going round and round this loop. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. What if we were to... I don't know, take a flute, saw it up into sections and make impulse responses of every single section of that flute, and then create a chain of electronics that was a chain of impulse responses that you could manipulate and morph into different things. And then, I don't know, maybe it might come out creating some gigantic kind of piano that would be impossible to make physically, but it would sound like you had, if you see what I mean.
Right,
and then
yeah,
we're stuck in this two-dimensional world of, you know, all microphones are just like this tiny, flat little measuring device. It doesn't measure the sound of this space. It measures the sound of that there. It measures like a 1-inch diameter, paper-thin piece of sound. And then we play that back out of a 4-inch diameter or a 6 or 8 or 10-inch diameter piece of paper. And it's like, come on, let's like invent new ways of capturing and replaying sound, and then invent some different electronics that can feed into those things, and then let's invent some, like, you know, some real world things that make people go, wow, what happened there? Like, did a dinosaur come into the room or didn't it?
That's a fair point.
Or whatever. But it's like, you know, let's
Gaz is chomping at the bit here.
Hey, so, you know,
amen, brother.
People would have loved to have a Jupiter 8. You know, what's wrong with a bit of fantasy? A small little thing like that, just as reminiscent of a Jupiter. I think it's brilliant things. I think your suggestion there, you know, Mark, absolutely.
All right, not the Jupiter. The drum. Why are we making a drum that sounds like a drum? Make a thing that you hit that sounds like something new, that makes people go, wow, I've never heard that before. It's incredible.
I think, just, sorry.
That drum is about, you know, you can completely do new stuff with that drum, couldn't you? You could really make that drum.
Well, why aren't they doing it in the demo then? Why did the demo send me to sleep?
Because they want to show how
I should have been on the edge of my seat going, oh my God, have they... And you know what? What's his name's demo? Tim Exile's demo had me on the edge of my seat going, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that does that. Oh, what if you did this? It could do that. And that was more compelling to watch in terms of, like, you know, drawing me in as a customer.
Well, if I could just address perhaps your first point, which was the Jupiter. Yes, I understand. I think the reason that we're going down these routes is because it's so expensive to make those things again. And this, I agree that it would be nice to see new synthesis techniques, but I think the point is they're figuring out ways to kind of replicate what they can no longer afford to charge for, because we're not prepared to pay, you know, 8,000 quid for a synthesizer these days. So we'll pay 300 quid for something that sounds quite a lot like something that costs But I will say, and this is something that came out in the JP-08 review, which was when I had the 8 here, I was really, because I've never played one. You know, I've never had one in my presence, and which is so I was quite keen to see it. And I thought actually it's not all that impressive as a synthesis engine. It's very basic. You know, it really didn't have
Bloody hard to mix.
Didn't really have a lot to offer me. You know, I think the one of the main reasons that synth became so iconic, and this is a theory I've developed since I had it, was A, it was 2 synths in one because you could split the keyboard, and B, it had professional connections, it had balanced outputs, it had switchable, it had mix outputs, and it was something that professional touring musicians could take out of the road and play polyphonic synthesizers in a robust and kind of, you know, repeatable fashion. It wouldn't break down as often as perhaps the alternative at the time. So therefore we all saw these megastars, because they were the only people who could afford it, playing them on TV and various places where they were filmed, because when they were touring they would take one of those because it was cheaper than carrying 2 synths. Yeah. And it was just a logistics thing in many ways. I don't know.
I mean, when I toured with Duran, Nick insisted on taking that on the road, and I used to think, oh god, it's going to break down and everything, and it got smashed on and off the back of trucks for years. And I have to say that if people are having reliability issues with them, then I'm surprised, because it really held up to a lot of abuse, including, you know, whatever, I'm not going to say it.
We couldn't kill it.
Spillages, perhaps.
No, we couldn't kill it. We absolutely couldn't kill it. And he did buy a couple more of them. So if there's 2 less on the market, they're probably sitting in their storage unit somewhere.
I hope you enjoyed my homage to Save a Prayer at the beginning, because one thing when
I did.
We borrowed Dave Spears one, and he said, God, all anybody ever does when they see a Jupiter 8 is play Save a Prayer, and I thought, that's what I'm going to do. Just as a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those are all valid points. But I mean, yes, I guess so. But I mean, I suppose we need to be able to make something that feels expressive first, and then, I mean, can you imagine programming one of those, Rich? Yeah, you could have 100,000 samples in one of those files. Who's going to want to actually program those all to respond in the way? That would just be an absolute nightmare. God, imagine the job.
What, we're talking about programming those little Roland toys?
No, I was talking about programming
the drum.
well, that too, but back the drum. You know, up to 100,000 samples. Crikey! I mean,
well, I'd be interested. You obviously need libraries that are sensitive to all of those layers of velocity and positioning. So they're going to have to actually provide sounds that this thing, you know, supports.
Yeah, good luck with that. It's a lot of work, I'd imagine. But yeah. We'll see, but I mean, I was just impressed at the sensitivity, and I suppose, in many ways, you know, this is something that we're, you know, with Roly and all these other things, we're looking for something that gives us a bit more than a mechanical on-off with a bit of velocity, I suppose.
I mean, I'll withdraw some of my comments then, because firstly, I'm not a drummer, so I don't understand that world, right? It could be that some drummer out there wants to have the sound of a Ludwig Black Beauty snare in the perfect environment, which is always going to sound the same. It's always going to be perfectly tuned, and it's going to have the same expression and character as a real drum. So for that market, I can see the point of it, but I just wish that it was doing something that wasn't doing in the video. Sorry.
Yeah, well, no, fair enough.
Well, do you remember the Moog drum?
No, I don't actually.
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you would. I mean, that wasn't a terribly successful product, and it did anything but trigger traditional drum sound. It was more like a Sinair. Yeah. If you recall Sinair. You know, it was more like
Didn't it have like a weird kind of white membrane across it as well?
I'm looking for an image. I'm
of
looking
a
for an
Moog
image
drum?
of a Moog drum. Hold on, images from Moog drum. Here we go. Wow.
Well, and then the Korg wave drum came later.
There it is.
Wave drum. I've got modeled with wave drum. Yeah, sorry.
Wow. That looks a very collectible item.
The Moog drum, yeah.
Oh, no, they put those really irritating connectors on it, which look like cheap Binatone.
Many drummers, as you know, Mark, are touring with some form of electronic triggering, and some of it relates to playing drum-like sounds and some of it doesn't, but it wouldn't be bad for them to have this degree of responsiveness if it were available to them.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah, I guess so.
I would agree with that.
I guess so. How many do you think they'll sell then?
Well, let's have a look on the Indiegogo page. What have they got to? They've got 30 days left. It's only been 35 days. They are 1/5 of the way there, 20%. So they've got 20%. I'd say.
So how many people have registered an interest in it then?
Oh, 37 backers in 5 days.
37.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's expensive
Wow,
stuff.
That's going to be very expensive then, isn't it? By the time it gets
It
to
is.
market.
Yeah, well, wish them luck because it's like Rich says. I mean, it's good that there could be that level of expressivity. Right, what have we got next? Oh yeah, this is finally we get this, and this sort of relates to this is
Today I've got my hands on the Roland Boutique
Marcus Fuller, who may be in the chat room.
Now this
He is.
their new version of the Jupiter.
I will fast forward. Marcus Fuller does these sort of teardown videos of latest musical equipment where he takes them
It wasn't a
apart.
keyboard. It says to keyboard.
There is actually, let me see, there was a bit where he found, which was,
There you go.
oh, I can't see.
That's the modulation and the modulation.
Let me see, sorry, I'm fast forward, I
GA
can't see.
chip to
This is quite interesting because there's basically a hole
the same board
for the main DSP chip next to it,
Interesting.
which looked,
The FPGA chip, which is this thing, the ESC2, that is in all of the Era products. And this is where all the analog circuit behavior, ACB, is sort of computed. And, that's how it sort of does its thing, if you wish. So, yeah, that's a good thought.
I'm sorry, I couldn't find the exact spot, but Marcus Fuller does some great, he tears down all kinds of stuff, puts them on the test bench and takes a look. And I did ask him to come on the show, but I don't think he got the message, but in time, because it was only about an hour ago, I asked him, so fair enough. Maybe another time, but I'd be very interested to see. But this was kind of interested about how generally speaking, at least I am, generally quite unaware of what goes on inside much of this equipment. And whether or not this sort of thing, it would be good for us to have perhaps a bit more knowledge about what is going on inside this equipment, and also not only the fact that there was a room for another chip there makes me kind of wonder what else might be coming along. To double that capacity, we could be getting some other interesting things. I know, Gaz, you mentioned Marcus to me yesterday, and I thought actually I'll check that video out because it's only just come out, and I don't know how on earth he got hold of one to take it apart because basically they're like rocking horse poop, these things.
I love that he got the little, the meter, the measuring meter, and he measured the amount of travel of the chip.
Yeah.
It was 1 centimeter, was it? So yeah, 10 millimeters.
10 millimeters. 10.03, wasn't it?
Yeah, not very much, basically. Yeah, that. And that, I think we did cover this when we talked about them before, and it did come up in my review, which was on a synthesizer which is essentially quite simple. It's not doing lots of complex synthesis. As with the Juno, it's very important to find those little tiny places where it just does something, it comes alive and it has a sweet spot, and that is almost nigh on impossible. I know some people left comments in the video that I said, hey, it's fine, I just hook it up to my Kenton MIDI controller which will output system exclusive and it's fine, but it's not. There aren't many that will output and are easily programmable for system exclusive purposes. So that's the thing that that's why that's important, definitely. Sorry, did I interrupt you, Gaz, there a minute? I was just bringing that point up. No,
but, Marcus's videos are just brilliant, though. It's like it's just so fascinating to have a look inside that stuff and just to kind of. I love his enthusiasm for explaining the details. It makes what could be quite a dull subject really quite fascinating. Brilliant. More of them, please, Marcus.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know, Rich. What do you think? I mean, I don't know. I guess. Because your route has been through selling some of these analog synthesizers in a previous life. I mean, were you expected to know what was going on inside? Did anybody care at that point? I mean, have we just become less interested, and it's now good to know these things?
It wasn't as much of a discussion, certainly on a sales floor, back when I was selling synths in the mid '70s, because there were only one style. Subtractive analog synthesis was your whole room. Either that or you had a Mellotron in the room. So it wasn't that much of a discussion about what was under the hood other than in terms of the features, the feature sets back then.
Right, yeah, so it'd be about what was on the front panel, I guess, more than anything else. But I guess it does deeply affect it. I know, Mark, I'm guessing this thing might sort of interest you, because, I mean, when we first started to discuss, when you first got involved in Sonic, your kind of shtick was very much to do with circuit bending and kind of,
Yeah. It does interest me in it. I'm fascinated by the fact that it's the same chip in all of them. And I'm pleased to hear that it's the same chip as they're using in the I'm gonna say it the wrong way round. Area range, area.
Yeah.
Range.
That'll do.
Because they've made plug outs of everything in that range. So theoretically, about mid 2016, I will be able to buy a plug out Jupiter, a plug out JX3P, and a plug out Juno 106. That's what I'm hoping anyway. I don't like it when they use the same hardware and put different software in it to sell basically the same device with a different face on it, because I would like to have a generic one which I could put whatever software I wanted in, either by a little card or something, SD card. If I could put an SD card for each of those things in, and I could change its personality so I could use it for different things, that would be nice. I don't want hardware everywhere, you see. I'd like...
I suppose, yeah, no, I take your point. I suppose
small form factor.
I suppose the thing is with those is they are actually all hardware different. You know, maybe the underlying circuitry and some of the chips are the same, but, you know, the controls are different. You know, the Juno is, to my mind, was the most successful.
So I want one... So I want to buy my first one for $300, and then I want to slide the whole top panel off and put a different top panel on. Or oh no, it's got to be magnetic actually. I could off with that panel, put on with the other panel, and then it does like a whole different set of things. And then I only have to pay I don't know, $100 for each of the panels, and then the whole thing works out a lot. I don't know. It's just the way my mind...
I mean, we've seen.
It's why I bought a computer, because I can design my record covers on my computer. I can talk to my mum on my computer. I can have any synth I can think of emulated on my computer. I can watch Blue Peter
or Marcus Fuller.
Those don't exist anymore.
Or indeed Sonic
taking
Talk.
apart things. Yeah.
Gaz, anything to add to that? But that's an interesting idea. I mean, because I think, you know, going back to the hold on a sec, Mark, the MPE thing. Yeah. I mean, I could see a point, because we as we discovered with the JDXA, it responds to poly aftertouch. They just haven't translated into the hardware. So if these things all begin to have this capability, and then you spend a lot of money on a nice controller that will do all of those things, which is, I guess, the Roly approach, then you know then you're onto a winner, right?
Absolutely. And I think it needs to gather momentum. I love the idea of, you know, the standards being adopted. I saw something recently on iOS just came out that's conforming to the MPE standard. I think somebody mentioned in the chat room that MPE's changed its name, so I'd be keen to know
I don't know what's it called now. Well, multi-dimensional polyphonic expression is kind of a mouthful.
It is.
What's
but
MPE?
I just think the more people are talking about it, and the more it starts to be adopted as a standard, then I think it opens the door to an absolute amazing world of expression, you know, human expression into electronica. And, you know, it's something that I've been looking for all my life. And I've been going through not all my musician life. I've been looking for ways of getting more expressivity. So, you know, to adopt these standards it'd just be amazing, I think. But I mean, Logic X does it now, doesn't it? You can have it can. I'm pretty sure now that you can do that. The individual notes can have different modulation pitch values.
I think you're right. Yeah, I haven't installed it yet. I must say I'm going to, but I haven't yet.
It's been in the VST3 note expression.
Right. Yeah.
For a while now, but yeah. So anyway. Sorry, I'm just boxing about that at the moment, just because I just want to see it being widely adopted. So I think the more people talk about it, you know.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair enough. Anyway,
what I was going to say, actually, I didn't quite. The thing he was measuring it with was called a vernier gauge, just a little technical thing from my apprenticeship when I was 16. You could design a system exclusive kind of external thing, because in the Atari days, it used to be Hybrid Arts Gen Edit, I think, and you just design your own layout and assign all the different system exclusive stuff, and just look in the back of the manual and have a look to see what which system exclusive code you needed to send to the thing to move those things. So you could make your own editor fairly easily, I would have thought.
Well, no, you could,
with
but
whatever the why not?
Well, you could, but the thing is, most people are not comfortable with editing strings of hexadecimal language. I mean, even back in the days when I was trying to do it, it was still a nightmare. It was so easy to mess up. Rich is holding his hand up in agreement there.
I didn't.
Well, no, you didn't. But I mean, we're talking the masses of
Okay,
people.
I've got Asperger's. So
but yeah, it's not. So I mean, that sort of thing. It needs to be more accessible, right, Rich? I mean, yes, it's
I did some too, but yes, most people are. But then again, today you live in a world of people who are really interested in modular synthesis and who like to dig into Reactor and create their own stuff. So
yeah,
I think that the world is as rife for that sort of thing as it's ever been.
I do remember. Right. I do remember in the back of the D110 manual, which was my first exposure to it, there was like an addendum which was about 20 pages, and it was every single parameter written in hex that you said, and it says. But that's the sort of thing that you have to.
You could teach the computer it though. You could hook the thing up to the computer. You move the thing and tell the computer learn this, and the computer would learn it at the other end. There were things built into. I think there was something built into Cubase actually that you could have. Maybe 8. Oh no, I've got this muddled up. I had JL Cooper Fader Master, which was brilliant, and you could plug your synth into JL Cooper Fader Master. I want to learn this, and you
the chat room now speaking hex
to learn.
Here we go. The chat room speaking hex. Yes, MIDI. Apparently, the BCR 2000, the Behringer will learn system exclusive. I didn't know that actually. I will check because unfortunately, the boutiques have gone now, and I didn't get time.
Brings the whole thing to life
to do it. But yeah, well, it was the same thing. The just having a box of faders, when I hooked it up to the Reface DX, it suddenly became, this is much more interesting for evolving sounds rather than just 3 or 4 parameters at a time. But yeah, agreed. It could be so. I mean, and it still comes back to the fact that MIDI is absolutely flipping amazing. I mean, what you can still do and what you can communicate, the level and the number of, I still never cease to be amazed by it, and it does sound like everybody wants a more higher resolution and alternative transports, and that's fine. But at the moment, this is still the only viable, and widely used system. So yeah, I suppose so. I think that's probably a good time to stop now. We've been talking about a number of things, and I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have enjoyed the show, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. We very much appreciate that. We're aiming to get our 100k sometime soon, and then I get a little plaque I can put on the wall. I'll have it just there so you can see it. Or I might even take it home and put it in the toilet, which is what everybody does with those sort of things. But anyway, that's really far too much information, I'm sure. I want to say thank you very much to our guests. I want to say also thank you much to our sponsors. Of course, do check out the UVI Falcon. The URL to use for that is bit.ly/ST Falcon, all lowercase. And I want to say thank you very much to Ozone. And if you want to enter the competition, remember what you have to do is tweet the hashtag Mastering Suite and the hashtag Ozone7 to @SonicState and @Isotope Inc. to win a copy of Ozone 7, which frankly is probably the finest mastering suite in town by a long chalk. So it remains for me to say goodbye to all of our guests. I want to say, first of all, thank you to you, Mark, for joining us. I know you were up late and a bit zoned out earlier today, so thanks for making the effort to join us. It's been a great pleasure as ever.
You are very welcome. I shouldn't be scratching my face and making weird faces when I'm saying goodbye, but there you go.
That's it. It's just one of those
the way
things.
I roll.
Go for it. Oh, they're all going to do it now. Gaz, also thank you to you for joining us. I think we'll see you tomorrow with Circuit, which I'm very much looking forward to. So thank you. Oh, yep.
I'm going to mention about the gig I did on Monday, because it's just quite interesting, because the project's coming to an end tomorrow, and that's just if anyone gets a chance to maybe catch it before it finishes. It's a Bristol thing, but it's an art project called Sanctum, and basically there's a church in the middle of Bristol city centre that got really badly bombed in the Second World War, so it's sort of like a roofless, it's just the walls, etc. And this Chicago artist called Theaster Gates, he's come and he's built a structure inside of this church, and it's it's all made out of reclaimed wood from buildings I think that were damaged in the war. So it's all made out of, it's kind of all put together out of pieces of wood, and then the windows are really these old windows, a strange assembly of stuff. But the interesting thing is that there's been it's 552 hours of continual performance back to back, 24 hours a day, just running constantly through this period of time, 15th to the 19th, so it's ending tomorrow. And the interesting part of it was, I was performing with Asteroid Deluxe, a space rock band I play in, and what we had to do is we had to join on to the previous act that was playing, and then we sort of, and it was two hang drummers who were playing before us, so they carried on playing, and we just started playing beneath them. They packed up, moved, and we played for about an hour or so, just over an hour, and then these other guys came, set the stuff up, and we overlapped, and they carried on playing. And on it's going right now. It's a free entry.
Is there a live stream? It seems like there should be, really, for something like that, because it's that sort of event.
Yeah.
What's it called again?
Well, Sanctum, Sanctum.
Sanctum in Bristol. Let's see if I can find that before we go. That sounds like. Are they going for some kind of Guinness World Record?
I've no idea.
There we go. Theaster Gates, Sanctum moments. Okay, so it looks like, it doesn't look like there is a stream. That's a shame. But there we go. This is the oh wow, yeah, I see. Gosh, that does look interesting inside, doesn't it?
Right. Beautiful, like a beautiful building as well.
Wow. Okay. Now that does look good. Excellent. Well, hopefully, if you're right, I wonder what the graveyard shift, if you'll excuse the pun, is like there, because obviously it would be from about 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. might be the one where you have the least amount of people turning up. But hopefully that won't be the case.
They only let a certain amount of people in.
Okay. 20
minutes or so, and there's a queue. There's pretty much a constant queue of people trying to get in. But, I'm sure if you go, you will get in, but you might have to queue a little bit.
Brilliant.
I'm just looking at the website. There's something to reserve entry right at the bottom of this where you can click and select a date and time when you want to visit. So do you think that's a...
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Well,
there's no live stream, so you have to be there.
The URL is sanctumbristol.com, so do check that out. That's very worth checking out. All right, thank you, Gaz. That's a nice top tip for a bit of performance art. And, of course, Mr. Rich Hilton, who is no doubt waiting to get in a speeding helicopter we'll use today, because I like the sound of that, where he'll be whisked off to perform high-octane recording duties at the Nile Rodgers studio. Please say it's so.
Or something like that.
Yeah, that's all we want to hear. Anyway, thank you very much, Rich. It's been a pleasure to have you aboard. Thank you to all our guests.
It's good.
And, of course, all of our sponsors. That's it for this week. Stay tuned for more. There will be more coming along soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.